Hello everyone. So today we are going to understand Spring Framework and its basic. We are going to start with the part of Spring Framework. Let us understand what are the important details about a particular framework which is popular whenever it comes to the part of Java. And whenever you are trying to develop certain kind of applications, let it be web applications or enterprise applications by making use of Java, Spring Framework plays a crucial role in all these things, right? So by making use of Spring Framework, we can actually develop the applications in real time and what exactly we are expecting, the kind of actual real-time services we can provide, like by creating REST services or by creating any database-related operations or UI-related operations we can perform, right? And the base of that, or the middle layer of that, or the service layer of that is definitely going to be designed by making use of Spring Framework, right? But before we move ahead, we need to understand the most important part, and that most important part is why exactly we require a framework, right? What is the exact need of a framework, right? So before we move ahead, let us try to understand what is exactly the need of a framework is. So in the earlier context, when we used to develop a kind of an application, right? Say for example, it's a web application. Now I have to develop a kind of a web application. So that web applications, in order to develop that, what kind of web servers are required, right? We do have Tomcat Apache, we have Glassfish server, we have so many other servers available. Which one to pick up, right? I have the kind of UI to make available as it is a web application, right? What kind of UI to be selected and how exactly my operations, whenever it comes to services part and to connect with the UI, how exactly that is going to happen, what exactly the kind of database that I'm going to select and how exactly I'm going to communicate with database, and what kind of code that I need to write, and what are the suitable databases, all those things, right? Let it be any tools required in between, any plugins required in between, any sort of other details that are required. Now I had to manually form all those things, right? And that is what exactly will definitely a time taking task, as well as the compatibility issues in multiple tools that we are making use of, that is also it is going to create. And with all these details, getting into the actual application development or developing an application and testing it in real time is become a very lengthy process, right? And it is becoming a costly process as well. Better way, I should have a particular part wherein everything is available at one place, and that one place is exactly called as your one stop shop, is exactly called as your framework. By making use of framework, or by actually working on the part of framework, I'll get the idea that now I don't have to go anywhere. Whatever kind of standard project structure that I need to write, whatever kind of server that I'm will be requiring in the future, whatever kind of templates that I'm going to require, right? Everything will be available in one place, and that is what exactly a framework is. Above all, say for example, I'm trying to develop certain modules, if I'm trying to write certain kind of services, and later while assembling all of these things all together, if I get to know that there are certain design issues, right? Now design issues, they are having some sort of trouble with them, right? So like errors, you can't see design issues. Now design issues are something which are very critical or very crucial, and at the actual application test level, you will get to see that due to design issues there are performance issues that we are observing. So it's very important to deal with all those design issues as well. Now framework comes into picture here as well, and framework actually start working on that particular part as well, wherein it is going to give you the idea wherein, or it is going to give you certain sort of important places wherein you can actually implement the design patterns to avoid all your design issues as well, right? By implementing all those design patterns, you can literally avoid all those design issues as well. And while avoiding all those design issues, definitely the performance barrier that we are able to see, that will be somewhere removed, right? So that is also one more interesting actual kind of a strength of a framework is. So yes, there are multiple frameworks available, but our discussion is completely focused on Spring framework, right? Spring and the lightweight version of that particular Spring framework, which is exactly called as Spring Boot, right? So we know that there are multiple things available with Spring and Spring Boot, right? So we'll quickly try to understand a few important points from there. And that is, say, for example, we have certain advantages like Spring or Spring Boot framework, the lightweight version of Spring that gives us some predefined templates, right? Template like you don't have to work on the database properties that we need to set up, right? Or the application properties that we actually write in order to connect to a database. We know that we are going to follow object to relational mapping, right? Spring is actually going to follow ORM in itself, and that ORM, object to relational mapping, has certain kind of predefined templates already available, wherein you have to only fix the values, and you don't have to really have to worry about what kind of things these are and how exactly these are managed, right? Only you have to write your application specific things, and those templates will work automatically, right? So this is something which is the most important feature of Spring Framework, one of the most important feature. Yes, it is going to work on dependency injection. Right. Dependency injection means I'm going to inject all those kind of dependencies on which I am dependent. Now remember, whatever things on which my entire application is dependent or based on are exactly called as the dependencies. Right. And Spring Framework has usual working that we inject all those dependency in our object, and those objects we try and make capable of working over the kind of the context, and it will execute and it will give us all those kind of services which it is capable of. That is what exactly the actual working is. This separates, right, or this typically gives me, right, or the other essential details typically keeps the part of the dependency, right, the part of the dependent nature very, very thin, right, or you can call it as loose. So this loose coupling is something that is what exactly is expected, right? We are nowhere expecting tight coupling whenever we are developing any application, right? Loose coupling is what exactly promoted whenever it comes to Spring Framework as well, so that we can easily remove a part and we are less dependent on that. So it will less hamper our application though. Abstraction in terms of data security is also maintained. We do follow simple POJO classes, plain old Java objects, and by making use of them, we can typically devise our entity classes, our basic model part. And yes, we can think of the MVC part as well, model view controller, whenever it comes to developing an application, right? Data security is what exactly one of the most understood feature here. We can easily develop by making use of the modules which are there, right? We can easily develop the actual application. Not only we can develop, we can easily test as well, right? A proper test support is also available, wherein we can test all those applications which are there as well. So that is something which is also possible. No doubt there are multiple things available, but we need to understand all our annotations, because this is completely going to follow the annotation based framework, right? And this is the most important thing, which is going to hide my bean based architecture. And if it is going to hide that, the complexities are also hidden. Once the complexities are hidden, I can typically get into the annotation based architecture. I can make use of all the annotations in order to write my applications, right? So the life of a developer, we can say, it is more has become more easier after this. ORM, as I said, object relational mapping, we are going to follow. Hibernate kind of tools we can make use of for our complete database independent nature. Web and web MVC are the most important details whenever it comes to the web application development. We know that mostly Spring Boot framework is utilized for developing single page applications, right? Wherein everything is available at one page. And right now we are able to see most of the web applications like that only, right? So developing a typical stack is very important, right? Putting up all these things at one place has also become very easy and rapid. That rapid application development or rapid growth is what exactly expected whenever it comes to the life cycle of the application development, right? And this is something which is the focus of your Spring Boot architecture or Spring Boot framework is, so that you can understand typical things and you develop your application in a rapid way. That is something which is the actual understanding behind Spring. No doubt there are multiple things which are there that we can list with this one after the other, right? But as this particular is just a kind of an introduction, so we'll keep it up to this particular part or framework. And no doubt this can be escalated in a more depth as well. And we can write basic services like REST services by writing the controller part. We can actually think of developing a UI and how to connect to that particular UI by making use of Spring services. We can observe that as well. HTTP and HTTP client or HTTP services will help us to connect to our UI. Whenever it comes to backend, we are going to have complete database independent nature. We can communicate, we can work on that part as well, can communicate with database as well. So that database part is completely operated by your JPA specifications and Hibernate kind of tools, right? So we can move ahead, we can understand, we can work on all these details, we can develop meaningful stacks here, or we can develop meaningful applications here with this kind of framework. And surely there are multiple other things that we can discuss regarding Spring Framework as well, right? But for today, we'll stop here and we'll continue next part. Okay. Thank you so much.